And we're live. Remind me, Jim, what episode number are we on? You did just say it's just
Season 2, Episode 2.
Season 2, Episode 2 of the Fast Turk podcast. We're back after a little bit of a delay, or partly caused by the fact that there was a giant mid-season break in the. But yeah, we've got some news to announce. Jem sort of teased it last time around, and his top might give it away.
Yep. So, hi guys. I have managed somehow to wrangle my way into a British Superbike team. So, as you can see, well, it's partially blocked by my mic. As you can see there, Rapid CDH Racing. So, Rapid CDH are competing in the British Superbike Championship, and I have managed to secure a position with them as basically like a social media PR position. There's a couple of other guys working with me, but yeah, Rapid are quite new to the BSB paddock, and it is the big break I've been waiting for. I've made no secret of the fact that the main motivation of the Fast Turks was to show it as some sort of work that I can show in lieu of not having any experience. So thankfully, it has paid off. I will be working full time in the paddock, in the British Superbike paddock, for the rest of this season. So I'm not going to lie, massively chuffed with myself.
Yeah, well done, mate. Yeah, it was good to. So, what are we now? 2-3 weeks ago now. So the Silverstone round.
A couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah,
Was
2 weeks back.
I think it was 2. Yeah.
It feels like longer, but I guess time flies.
Yep.
Yeah, so I joined Jem at the track for that one, which was quite cool. Got to meet the team, hang out in the garage a little bit, get some photos for the team as well. And we're back at Alton Park this weekend.
Yeah, the long bank holiday.
Yep. Yes, so very much looking forward to that. I've got a new toy on order, and by a new toy I mean a new lens, which arrives some point. Well, delivery window is Thursday to Saturday, so they better not miss the window because I need it here by Saturday if I'm going to bring it with me to the track on Sunday. So,
is this another Uncle Jeff Bezos job?
Yes, this Uncle Jeff. So yeah, an Amazon special. So hopefully Amazon stick to their delivery windows. So without further ado, let's address this weekend's World Superbikes. All sorts of action. We'll briefly touch on. I don't think you watched the Supersport 300s, did you?
No, I didn't watch Supersport 300.
I caught on Saturday just because it had been so long since I'd managed to get any racing couch time with the lengthy break from the World Superbikes. I thought, I'm going to watch everything I can today. So I watched the Supersport 300s race 1. All I remember of that was the attrition rate was absolutely remarkable. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that 50% of the riders fell off, and from all positions. I think the leader fell, and he had like it looked like he was breaking away. Oh, I forgot his name now. Who was it that was leading that fell? Anyway, it was an interesting action-packed race, but we're obviously, as always, giving the spotlight to the Turkish riders. So,
yes.
Do you want to start with the super sports or the super bikes?
I think we'll do it in sort of order. Starting from Superbike, obviously Toprak. It's never been a happy hunting ground for him there. He obviously went on the record pre-race saying that since 2019 I've had a crash at every race that I've attended. Not every single race, as in the free, retiring from 3 races out of 3, but at least one of the 3. Typically in race 2. So obviously 2020 didn't race there because of the pandemic, but 2021 he got taken out by Garrett Gerloff off the start in race 2. 2022 he obviously had that infamous, what is now the infamous coming together with JR, where they go for the same bit of track and end up, one argues that he took me out, the other one argues we're not going to go down that route. We've that's been done. So I think if there's a positive to take, he finished all 3 races and took home some points. Obviously, the negative is that there seemed to be a massive, again, a difference in sort of longevity and performance longevity between him and Alvaro Bautista. Bautista just this season absolutely, rich vein of form. The bike's obviously awesome and romping away with it. It's not looking good. Let's not be about the bush. It was a tough watch. I thought for a second in the race too. I thought, oh, hard front tire for Toprak. Maybe they've found something. They're going to go for something new. And initially, it looked like he was there for the first 5, 6, 7 laps, and again after that, heading towards midway. Not even that, maybe. Yeah. After that, it was just another masterclass by Bautista.
It was another hat trick from Bautista, and it's looking like we're settling in for a season of hat tricks from Bautista. I don't think Catalonia is going to be any better, but we'll come to Catalonia in a bit. But he reported that he was struggling with sort of front end, both on corner entry, mid corner, corner exit. He just didn't feel like he had the front end under him. I think he spoke to that in his interview at the end of race 2 on the Sunday. But then I think he mentioned that he was more comfortable with I guess one positive to take away is that he was more comfortable with the bike on the Sunday than he was on practice on Friday. So
you could see that, yeah.
Yeah, and you could see that in the performance as well, because it was, were it not for, we'll talk about Sunday in a bit, but yeah, so, race 1 was a fairly sort of somewhat lonely affair, just sort of, he never looked like he was in any danger of dropping into the clutches of the chasing pack into 4th, but he didn't ever look like he was really, apart from maybe after the first 2-3 laps, he didn't really ever look like he was going to mount a serious challenge and be able to take and retain 2nd even, let alone the win. So
no, and I never expected that, to be honest. I've got the end results here, and we've got Bautista 3.1 seconds, and the thing is, that it could be more, but he's probably just rolled off the last few laps and just coasted to victory. I thought the interesting thing
with
was
Ray.
Yeah,
because I think he was catching Ray quite quickly towards the end. But again, with the last 3 laps, has Ray taken his foot off the gas and just thought, well, I'm not going to catch the leader, and I'm too far ahead of Toprak.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, because it was such a I think that there was a big falling off the cliff thing for Johnny Ray in race 1, because the amount that Toprak caught him, I don't think he would have wanted that, because it was getting it's less than a second. If you look, it's 3.1 Johnny Ray gap to JR, and Toprak 3.8. That means it was 7 tenths.
Mm.
It
was about 7 tenths a lap he was catching him towards the end.
I think JR had a lot of tyre deg, and had it been another lap, I reckon probably Toprak would have taken him.
Fair enough. But Ray had pretty good pace actually on the Saturday. All throughout. Apart from the very last few laps where he sort of dropped off, he sort of managed to. He kept the Kawasaki going at a reasonable pace for longer than he was able to. Let's just say, last season, for example, where he seemed to really come sort of mid-race distance, because he was having to sort of wrestle the bike so much. He was probably suffering from tyre degradation quite early on. He managed to. I don't know if there was something about, just the abrasiveness of that track, maybe not being quite so hard on the tyres, maybe because, there isn't such a long straight. Maybe
he's also the king of Assen, though, dude.
Yeah, the weather was a lot cooler as well, so that probably would have helped with tyre wear issues. But yeah, I did actually, in my notes, write down here that the front tyre did look quite beaten up on the last few laps. And it wasn't so much a slow-mo that I saw, but like in F1 when the tyres start to grain and you get like a dark band that starts to appear around the tyre. And I noticed that he did look like he was suffering from a bit of graining there. Maybe I should read through all my notes properly.
Well, look, you've made notes, mate. That
I've made notes, which is good. So yeah. And then in terms of the other riders outside of the top 3, I think it's unfortunate to see our boy Tom Sykes. I say our boy just because we've both been lucky enough to have met him, but he's
a cool dude. We like
Yeah,
Tom.
he's a quite cool dude. We like Tom. So yeah, he's had a lot of DNF so far this season.
Which does
Another,
up to race 1, he hadn't finished the race yet. It's all been
no, and he
technical
hadn't.
issues.
So it was nice to see him actually get a win.
A win?
And
You mean
then
a
yeah,
finish?
not a win. Sorry, a finish. Which the number
A
of
win.
DNFs he's had so
Tom
far.
would kill for a win.
Number of DNFs he's had so far. I guess a finish probably felt like a bit of
Like
a win.
yeah.
So, yeah. But then also really impressive from Locatelli in race 1. That's another top 5 for him. He's not been outside of the top 5 all season. So yeah, top 5.
He's picked it up, but I still have an issue with that. Look at again the gaps. The top 3 covered by 4 seconds. Yeah, then you've got 10 seconds until Locatelli and Bassani cross the line essentially together for 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
It's still this huge chasm between, I'm not going to call them that name that they keep getting called because I just find it irritating now. Everyone calls them the Titanic Trio. That's just getting boring. I'm calling them the Holy Trinity. So Bautista, Toprak, and Ray are the Holy Trinity. There's 7 seconds from them to the next guy. It should, like I said, I wanted to go back to your point. JR has got the most winningest record at that track. He just, even on the Honda, when it wasn't a very good bike, he used to win there. He just loves it there. He just, for whatever reason, it suits his style.
Yeah, it just clicks with his style, obviously.
Yeah. And I expected Ray to beat Toprak in every race, if I'm honest. So it wasn't as bad as I feared. But yeah, shout out Locatelli. He's gone well there before as well. He does like it there. Again, Bassani, my man, Agata, 6th in race 1. He's basically doing what I thought he would do at the start of this season, which is to be deep into the top 10, if not challenging for the podium, but deep in the top 10, maybe challenging for top 5, top 6 honours. So for me, Agata is a kind of, he's doing what I expected. He's sticking to what I believe will happen.
Yeah, for his rookie season and the Superbikes, he's having a good outing so far. And then speaking of Bassani and Locatelli, he's outperformed Rinaldi again.
Yeah, I knew this was coming. You love Michael Ruben Rinaldi.
I've got a bee in my bonnet about him at the moment, and it's just 16th. I think he finished in race 1. Just you're on a factory. I think it was 16th.
15th behind Philip Ertl, who we're going to touch on later because
just not good enough.
I know.
It's just not good enough. I mean, we're talking about.
But there must have been a problem there because he got scolded on the Saturday or the Friday when the coolant pipe came loose, and it was like boiling hot water that he ended up getting scolded by.
Yeah, but then
I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm just saying this dude seem to have a really torrid weekend for some reason.
Sure, but then Loris Baz was coming off of the back of an injury and was still in, complaining of considerable discomfort while he was riding, and he managed to bring it in 7th. And you got Rinaldi, who's
17th in race 1. Loris Baz
was he 17th?
17th. Let me have a look in the other.
Oh results. Wait, sorry, no, he's tell a lie. Sorry, a reason why I've said 7th because I've got 7. It might. Really should read my notes more carefully. So he's 7 weeks off of the back of his injury.
Yes, yeah.
Where his doctors were telling him, he'll be lucky to be walking after 7 weeks. 7 weeks later, he's on a World Superbike, and he's only 2 positions behind Rinaldi, who's on the same machinery that Bautista's just absolutely romping away on. So if we're going to give Locatelli stick for being off of the pace of Toprak on what we assume is equal machinery, then Jesus Christ, what does Bassani have to do to get the factory right? Because
I know.
This was all throughout last season, and I think the reason why I've got a soft spot for Bassani is the fact that he's not on a factory machine, and he's consistently in or around 4th, 5th, 6th, and it's like, well, what more does the guy have to do to warrant a factory ride? Has Rinaldi got nudes of the team boss or his wife, or was he holding them to ransom over something? I don't know what it is that he that he could be bringing to the table, because it's not his performances that warrants a seat on the factory bike when he didn't have a particularly better Sunday. So yeah, and then in fact, I noted here as well for Loris Baz, he again, despite being off the back of a quite serious injury, and being told that at this stage after his injury, he'd be lucky to be walking. In Superpole, he actually set the fastest second sector out of anyone.
Okay.
So,
well, just looking for these results, Ronaldo's best was 10th in race 2, 13th in the Superpole race, and 15th in race.
Gradually getting better over the weekend, but again, 10th, like you're miles off, mate.
Yeah.
To
be fair to him, he was looking strong at the first couple of rounds. There was some strong performances there, like definitely better than what we've seen before. But he's sort of reverted to type.
But again, he's consistently inconsistent. So he's
watch him go well at Misano. He'll go to Misano, which is not the next round. I think Misano is either
it's after Catalunya, I believe.
Is it after Catalunya? Then he'll go well there. Trust me. Home round, he always goes well there.
Let's see. And then just another quick shout out to our fellow Brit Scott Redding. Had a quite good performance in race 1. I think
race 1 Scott came 10th, and then 8th in the Superpole race for Redding, and 7th. So again, got better as the weekend. It's not bad. I mean, we know that bike isn't up to it.
It's not up to it, but yeah, I mean, he put in a fairly sort of strong performance midfield. And then shall we keep to Saturday and jump onto the Super Sports, or do you want to jump to Sunday with the Super
No, I want to talk about poor old, well, not very magic at the moment, Michael van der Mark, who obviously had an utterly horrific high side coming out, well, sort of going in and going out of the last chicane heading on to start finish. I hate
the only
to
accident we saw there this weekend, but
yeah, I hate to use the term, but this guy can't seem to catch a break in so much as a break of luck. I mean, he's just come off of a very serious and long-term leg injury. He's not been riding for too long. You know, we've had the first couple of races, the third round, and I've got to think that's the end of his season. And like you said, it's very possibly. It could be a career ender as well, because he can't keep doing this to himself.
A really, really uncomfortable crash to watch. It just, I mean, apart from the leg break, which was very uncomfortable to watch, I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone catch that much air off of a high side before. It was the highest of high sides. Really, really horrid crash. Our best wishes to him, and wishing him a speedy recovery. I think
100%.
Best case scenario, that's the end of season for him, and hopefully not the end of his racing career. I think, hopefully we'll see him back at the start of next season, but I don't see him. I don't see a return this season.
No.
So yeah, best of luck to him.
So I'm going to take the opportunity to, through very, very gritted and begrudging teeth, offer congratulations to Ducati for their 400th victory. I don't know which one exactly of the 3 wins was the 400th, but they have managed it. So fair play, Ducati. Well done.
And may it stop there. So,
yeah. Just stop.
At least for as long as Toprak's in the championship. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, are we doing Super Bikes Sunday or doing Super Sports Saturday next?
Let's go on to the Super Sports Saturday.
Okay. So let's start with the start, I guess. Andrew was looking for, so John was looking like he was on he was looking like he could be putting in a decent performance for us on the Saturday. In fact, going into the Saturday, having led 28 laps so far this season, he'd led more laps than anyone else coming into the race. And he was up at, I think he was on his first row, wasn't he? I think he was starting from third, wasn't he? If I remember correctly, it was either third or fourth.
Yes, yeah.
But somewhere around there, and he looked like he got a half decent start, but then got absolutely cleaned out through.
That was race
no
2, though. That was race 2.
Oh yes, of course. Hang on, sorry.
Race 1 was where he was with the front leading pack and led
entire
for
performance
a bit,
just
and then
fell off a cliff.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Was it the rear tire? Is it the front tire? Because they've gone to a fly-by-wire throttle in the hope of sorting these sort of tire issues out, and just making obviously the bike easier to ride for John. He didn't have these issues in Mandalika, but in Assen, just it was really bad from about halfway point onwards. It was like watching him back in the previous season at the sort of beginning of the season, where it was just good pace up until around halfway, and then just gradually fall back into the clutches of the sort of the chasing pack and seemingly not being able to do anything.
I mean, I think towards the start, there was. It's a shame we can't show video replays on the podcast for fear of copyright strikes. But he put a very tasty move on Caricasulo towards the start, and then sort of him and Bulliger started to break away, and it was an absolute masterclass from Bulliger as well this weekend. But towards the final third of the race, John started to drop about a tenth a sector, and then it just absolutely nosedived, and he dropped from I think with 6 laps to go, he dropped from second into third, and then from there he rapidly lost ground and ended up finishing, I think, in 7th. So that was
really disappointing.
Quite disappointing. That I don't know if it was tyre mismanagement. I don't know if it was incorrect tyre selection, because seemed like a difficult choice to make this weekend between the X and the Zero tyre, because sort of the track temperatures being so low. A lot of teams were sort of going for the X tyre in hopes that the cold temperatures would be able to preserve the tyre to the end. I'm not sure if John took the X tyre or the Zero tyre in the end, but have you got that on those? Have you got that on the sheet there that you've got?
No, I don't think it says it on the sheets. I've only to be honest, I didn't want to have a million sheets of paper. I've only got the Superbike results here. But it's a case of I wish there was like another really kind of what's the word I'm looking for, but like a really reference, like fast Kawasaki rider of the same, because obviously Pachetti's just got Jan as a single rider in that team. And the only other Kawasaki that I can think of that's half competitive is Adrian Huertas, who had his own woes in that race. So I just would love to know if it's how much of it is Jan and how much of it is the Kawasaki, because we do hear the commentators, to be fair to them, they say, look, the Kawasaki's not been the best bike in this class for quite a few years now, and it's essentially just an evolution of a quite tried and tested and old bike. It's not like they're not bringing anything new to the table. So it's just frustrating when these sort of old problems that have sort of constantly been there in the background, they've started well, at least in this round, they started to resurface again. Because we can see the pace is there, 1 lap pace, the pace is there. It's just getting it to, last. And whatever Bulliger and Aruba IT Ducati did, they were sorted. No problems. He just was consistent, just reeling off the laps.
Absolutely dominant performance from Bulliger there. He didn't ever look like he was going to be caught in any of the sessions.
No.
Just a flag to flag dominant performance from him. So
Bahattin had a steady one in race 1. Seemed to struggle a little bit, but did the Bahattin thing of he does the inverse
off to a bit of a shaky start. He sort of
he does the inverse of Jan and gets quicker as the
strong.
race. Yeah.
I think he dropped about sort of 5-6 spots off the start, and then I think he made 4 of them back. So I think he peaked in 11th, but then would he finish 12th or something like that?
No, it was 11th. He finished 11th from race 1.
Did he finish 11th? Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
So again, given the machinery he's got at his disposal, not a terrible performance from him.
But he's got a very tidy teammate now, Marcel Schrotter. While he was no mug in Moto 2. He was a bit flaky at times. It wasn't always up at the front, but when he was good, he was good. I don't think he ever won a race, but he was always threatening to sort of be in that top leading pack of riders. So to get a very experienced, established Moto 2 journeyman in Schrotter, it's no surprise to me that Schrotter's quicker than him because he's just got a wealth more experience.
Of course.
But in saying that, Bartdin came alive in race 2 and was really, really unlucky to get tangled in that. It was I'm going to say it was a racing incident. I mean, I don't want to sort of go, just because it's Bartdin and he's Turkish, I don't want to just go shooting down the other riders. It was Schrotter that put a move on him. It was Schrotter's move, teammate on teammate going into
offline,
yes, and then the other rider being you're going to see
opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
3 abreast into the chicane was always going to be a bit hairy.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I always argue that it's the responsibility of the rider behind, because you can see what's going on in front of you. The same can't be said for the rider in front. He can't see what's behind him.
Yeah, it's on you to get the overtake done safely.
Yeah. So if I have to apportion blame, I'd say it's more on him, but I wouldn't want to penalise that. As much as...
I don't think it was worth a penalty. No, I think that would be exceptionally harsh. I think it was a racing incident. I would say, could he have left him with a little bit more? I don't think it was a racing incident. It didn't look like he was ever going to get the move done to me. But I guess when you see the door open up, you get a rush of blood and you think, oh, there's a gap there. I'm going for it. So,
but what was really pleasing was that was the battle for 4th, and they weren't a million miles away from Caricasulo and Manzi, who were 2nd and 3rd. There was a gap, but I really get the impression that had Bahattin and Schrotter not sort of got tangled up with each other, maybe, with hindsight, maybe Bahattin should have sort of settled behind Schrotter, his sort of more experienced teammate. But I suppose if he felt he had the pace, it's like, well, hang on, this is my team. I was here, I've earned my stripes here last year. I was the European champion. So maybe Bahattin's also thinking, well, actually, no, I don't
Why
care.
Why should I yield? Yeah.
Exactly. So I get both sides. It was just unfortunate that the other rider sort of got tangled up with them. But if we're saying that wasn't worth a penalty, let's move on to John and his ex-teammate from last year, Jari Montella, off the start of race 2 of World Supersport, because that looked a little bit out of control.
That was, I mean, he had it all sorts of out of shape on the brakes. Tried to do a top rack and sort of and be the absolute last of the late breakers. And then I think it looked to me like as he sort of pulled a slight endo and then put it back down, his front and rear tyre were just a little bit out of line, and it seemed to induce, a bit of a wobble in the bike. And for me at that point, rather than trying to save it, knowing that there was probably a pretty high possibility he was going to send himself down the road like a bowling ball, he probably should have just got off the brakes, stood the bike up, and either gone through the gravel or the escape road or whatever route there is through turn 1. But it never looked like he was going to get it stopped. So I think, did that incident get investigated by the stewards? I can't remember now.
I'd have to check that. It was definitely worth.
That to me was a bit worthy of a penalty.
Well, John got a penalty last year at Must for bowling balling.
For less?
No, for more.
Well, not for less.
He bowling balled.
He did steamrolled.
What was funny about that though was when we were in with the fan club guys.
He
He
came in
he
like
had
a
a
wrecking ball.
he had a face like thunder. Obviously, I remember you weren't there, but obviously that was my second race with the TR54 fan club.
Right.
And what I thought was hilarious, although I obviously didn't show it, but he's got a face like thunder, and
Who's
Top
this?
Truck John, he obviously
Right.
doesn't
Okay.
want to be there, but Kenan Sofala came that round, and obviously with
Right.
him being there, and Varol Abir, the way he's very close with Kenan, so
Oh, was this in the paddock afterwards?
yeah. So
Right. So he's not
Top
in the mood for socials.
Top Ruck Bahattin Jan there with Kenan Sofala, and Top Ruck was basically winding him up, like showing a picture, I think, to like whoever was there. It could be Varol Abi or Ramazan Abi, and sort of saying, "Oh, look at this poor guy. He's taken down, stuck in the sandpit, and like look at how many people he's taken down, like laughing about it." Like, the
Oh
last thing
no.
you want is Top Ruck taking the piss.
That's
I
good to see
thought
that
that was
there's a little
hilarious
bit.
because he was not finding the funny side of it whatsoever.
Nah, I don't imagine that if you've just put yourself out of the race, you know you've picked up a penalty, and then and then you've got your mentor ripping stripes out of you for sending yourself down the
Well,
road like a
maybe not your
bowling
mentor,
ball.
but definitely your team leader. Your mate.
See, yeah, well, I mean, I guess he's
It
sort
was
of
Top Ruck, not Kenan saying it. It was Top Ruck with his phone going, look at this, look at this guy, like he's poor
right,
guy,
right.
he's in the
Well, I
gravel,
guess he mentors him somewhat as well,
Yeah, to a
but
degree, yeah.
to a degree. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, okay, his his bowling ball situation was slightly more egregious than
Yeah.
Montella's, but I'd say at a minimum maybe a double long lap penalty into the next race
I
is
think so
probably
because he's injured
deserved.
John quite badly as well.
Yeah, so I saw a picture. I sent a message to the guys that were there at the track, but I don't think I saw a response. But yeah, I saw a picture posted by John on social media, and he looked like his arm was wrapped up.
In a
I don't know if
sling,
that was in a sling. I don't know if that was, but it also looked like it was. Maybe it was a sling that I saw. Maybe it wasn't wrapped up. I thought maybe they wrapped it to try and reduce the swelling or something. But yeah, it looked like he was lucky, to be fair, that it could have been a lot worse. It looked like his bike clumped his arm. I don't know. It looked like his front tire ran over his arm, maybe, from what I remember of the
there was
accident.
some like rider plus
bike coming together, which
collateral
is
damage.
always,
Yes,
always, you don't want to see that. But yeah, I mean, if he was able to keep the tire wear under control in race 2, that could have been an interesting one, because I think in lap 1, in race 1, he was only 0.2 of a second off of lap record pace before his tire sort of went completely off. So again, whether that was too aggressive and him overriding, or yeah, I mean, I guess the important thing is that he's not badly injured and he's able to compete in the next race. So yeah, and again, very unlucky for Partin. Glad to see that he wasn't injured. It looked like it was a fairly innocuous fall. That could have been nasty. Yeah, I mean,
because
I
of the
did
guys
sort of,
behind. If you're in the middle of the track, they're hooning through there.
They're very limited in options. It was lucky there was no one behind him, and he was immediately on his feet and looking back down the track. But yeah, it was good to see that he didn't sort of seemingly pick up any sort of nasty knocks as a result. So yeah, and that would have been, he hadn't been finishing in quite the same sort of final grid positions as he was towards the end of last season. So to be up in 4th,
it was a big thing. That would have been his best finish.
That would have been his best finish. So, because I think his best finish till now is 5th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah.
So that he was on track for his best finish, which would have been very nice to see. So yeah, very unlucky. I guess we'll see how the season pans out for him. So be interesting. It was also quite interesting that the team was allowing him and Schrotter to sort of race quite so hard with one another, because had they have maybe been instructed to race for position, but maybe don't be sort of knocking 7 bells out of each other.
Which, to be fair, they weren't. They were the final pass that Schrotter put on him was a little bit
A little bit
risky when
spicy.
but it was totally
Wasn't
fair. There was
outlandish,
nothing wrong
but
with it.
yeah,
Yeah. I think they're probably this early on. I think they'll say to them, look, race
don't take each
good,
other out, but
yeah,
race
race fair.
hard, but race fair. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think because I think Bahattin earned his sort of stripes last season and has that European Championship. I don't think they'll be sort of saying to him, look, you've got to be a subservient number two. Schotter's the GP2, the Moto 2 guy. You've got to basically yield. I think they've got a good combination of fast, experienced journeyman and fast, but still learning his trade up and comer.
yeah,
I like that team. I think especially now Catalunya, both Jan and Bahattin were excellent last year. So I'm
yeah.
hoping that
Catalonia should suit the MV as
yes,
well, I reckon. So
it's a quick
that,
bike in a straight line. It's one of the
yeah,
quickest, I'd say.
it is, and there's an awful lot of straights at Catalonia, so that
Mm.
should be playing into Barton's hands, but not into
They're definitely not
Top
top
So
trucks. Not a
no.
chance.
And then I guess the next to talk about would be Superbike Superpole. There was whose engine was
The
it?
only half exciting race there was really in the superbike class because it was less
Shortened
than a
down to 8
second.
laps.
Yep.
Whose
Yes.
engine was it that blew up? I can't remember now. Someone's engine blew on a. I think it was
Baz.
on the.
Baz.
But yeah, it was Baz's engine that blew up. Trading fastest laps for the first 3 laps or so, or fastest sectors with the other front runners, and then within like 0.1, 0.2, strong in sort of sectors 1 and 2 particularly. Sector 3 suits the Ducati a bit more. But yeah, even in the 8 race, sort of by lap 5 or so, the lead pair had dropped him. I think he was by lap 5, he was sort of circulating about a quarter of a second a lap slower. Didn't really
after 8 laps at the finish, it was 0.9 difference between Bautista and Ray, first to second, and then Toprak was a further 1.7 seconds. Not a further, he was 1.7 seconds off of the win. So he just can't keep. There's something fundamentally. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with the bike per se. I just think Ducati have made big strides, more than anyone probably even anticipated. That bike was already strong, and it's just got even stronger.
Yeah, and maybe Toprak and Ray are just having to ride so hard in an attempt to keep up with him that they're just nuking their tyres. But yeah, unfortunately,
exactly
Toprak really, I mean, he never looked in any danger of putting a move on either Johnny Ray or Bautista at any point, and he had the legs on the chasing pack to keep himself on the podium. So I guess got himself on the podium, and that's about the most positive thing we can say for Toprak out of that race.
And a very, very rare mistake a mistake in as much as a mistake that costs him. JR crashing in race 2, lost that front really, really quickly. Really pushed it, but just shows again just how hard he's trying to push, because he was actually behind Toprak at that point.
Mm-hmm. So I think so far this season, Bautista's only dropped 12 points of the available points there was to collect, and I think that was in the race where he had his DNF. So
yes, the Superpole race of Mandalika.
Yeah, so it's just been a clean sweep for him so far. He seemed to get a quite bad start actually in that Superpole race. I thought maybe if Johnny Ray got ahead of him, because he sort of popped the front wheel up in the air off the line. Ray put a very tasty move. I think it was into turn 5 on lap 1. Ray put an extremely tasty move on him from way back where, licked the stamp and sent it.
Are you talking about the bit where there's that short straight and then they chuck it right and chuck it left?
Sweeping left, yeah. And he's
Ray is phenomenal into there. He's so
stuck
fast.
A very tasty move on him through there, and I thought, oh, that was a bit spicy. Another solid performance from Locatelli in that race. Kept himself in the top 5 again.
Locatelli was 5th in the Super Bowl race. Lowe's had a good race in 4th. Again, sort of not too far behind though. You know, none of these guys, this holy trinity, they just don't get any real help from their teammates. That's the problem.
No rear gunner action.
None.
Rinaldi was nowhere to be seen again.
Well, Rinaldi was
started
13th in that
16th,
race.
finished 13th. Yeah. Bassani had another decent race in that one. Started P8.
Yep.
I think he made up quite a few positions. He was P5 by turn 5 in that race on the first lap, but then finished 6th. So again, sort of just consistently sort of putting himself somewhere between 4th and 6th. So I mean, if Rinaldi's being criticised fairly publicly at this point for his inconsistent results, then I mean, again, what more does Bassani have to do other than consistently be putting it, on the sharp end of the grid?
But you watch him take points away from Toprak into Catalonia, like he did last year. He'll be there.
When you've got a kilometre long
distance,
when you've got a kilometre long straight and the Ducati under you, if you can't keep pace with the other guys who you've got such a dramatic straight line speed advantage over, and don't forget, it's not just the start finish. Where you've got. There's a few. I mean, off of the back of the fast sweeping right hander, so that'll be what, turn 1, 2. Off of the back of turn 3, you've got like a little short spurt. Well, not that short, but you've got a spurt there. And then you've got off of
basically around the back of the track, there's a short
round the back of the track before the hairpin. There's another sort of fairly decent long length straight there as well. So there's a lot of straights. So I'm expecting even Rinaldi to turn up for that one.
I'm wondering if World Superbike, if we get like some more domination, like I can see a hat trick again for Bautista and Catalonia. If he does something similar, even going into say Donington, which is a top track, I wonder if they'll change the rules. But then they might just say, "Well, hang on, it's just one guy though. Nobody else is doing what he's doing." That's the counter argument that if you were team,
that's why we need Rinaldi to pull his finger out his arse, so that if it was him and Bautista just sort of both pissing off into the distance, you could say, well, it's the bike. Whereas at the moment, you could make an argument that it's. But realistically, we know that Rinaldi's underperforming, but it will, from a non-biased Toprak tinted glasses perspective, if we do end up just having a season of, well, as long as he doesn't drop it, Bautista's going to win, and just a season of hat tricks, it's going to damage the class in as much as the excitement and the interest will diminish, because no one, myself as an example, in the years of, and this was when I was at the height of my F1 sort of fandom, in the years when it was just the case of, oh, who won today? Oh, was it Schumacher in the Mercedes, in the Ferrari again? Oh, shocking. I stopped watching for a few seasons because it stopped being interesting. Who's going to win? Well, barring a miracle, it's Schumacher again. So sport, and any sport, whether it's motorsport or football or whatever sport you care to mention, if there's no genuine competition or no real excitement, people will lose interest. So I think they will. I don't think they'll intervene this season. They may have to do something for next season, because by that point, you're now talking about a third season of straight Bautista and Ducati dominance.
But I'd say it's even worse.
Not good for the sport.
It's even worse than Formula One domination, though, because cars are less, I think, how can I put it? The weight issue in F1 and car racing, I don't think is such an issue.
No, but also they've got minimum. They do have a minimum car and driver limit,
right? Okay, which we don't have in this sport.
We don't, and I think from memory, it's, and I might be wildly wrong here, but I think it's somewhere around 790 or 795 kilos or something minimum rider. driver and car package
Yeah.
limit. So
My biggest issue is the fact that, look, I know he can't help that he's a small guy. That's just like, I'm a small guy. You know, that's just, you know, it's not like he's going to make an effort to eat and bulk up. You know, um, I think my biggest issue, more than even the straight line and acceleration advantage and the seemingly the way the electronics work with that bike, is he seems to be the only rider at certain places where he can even make um, like almost like a joker tire choice that nobody else is able to do, because they literally destroy and cremate the tire in about 4 or 5 laps.
and I
Whereas,
think that's why he's so strong at the end, because
yeah,
if you look at, for example, in the early parts of this weekend, for example, in each of the races where Toprak and Ray are in contact with him at the sharp end of the grid, they're visibly quicker through the bends, particularly around that sort of that turn 5, 6, 7 part of the track, and even sort of like through the final chicane. And there's certain sectors where you can see that Ray and Toprak are. There was a couple bits where they're frankly being held, particularly Ray. In fact, this weekend there was a couple sections. I think it was more so in the Superpole race. It was being held up in
mm,
certain parts of the track, particularly sector 1, sector 2. Then you get to sector 3, and he just pisses off.
mm,
And the thing that irks me the most about it, and we've spoken about this on the podcast before, is being a bigger and heavier guy myself. I empathize
yeah,
with the
yeah,
rest of them, because
yeah,
the reason why I find it so irksome is because it's the skill-free nature of the time that's being gained.
mm,
Because Ray and Toprak are having to use their skill to push the machine to the absolute ragged edge to get on terms with him through the corners and to be,
yes,
beating him for corner speed. And then for them to put all the effort in to catch him through the corners, for Bautista to be able to just now point it down the straight, twist his wrist, and disappear without having to then do anything. It's the zero skill nature of the way that he is able to do that. If he was roasting them through the corners, or was just better on the brakes, or he was getting better corner exit because he's just better at metering in the power on the way out, or whatever it is, or just mid corner speed, or whatever it is that he's able to maintain better, fine. But it's not that.
mm,
It's if you was to ballast his bike up with 10 kilos or so, or 10, 15 kilos, or if you was to take 10 horsepower away from him, be that, maybe knocking a few hundred revs off the top end or something like that.
mm,
I don't think he pulls comfortable hat tricks in
yeah.
the way that he's
It's
doing
never
now.
going to be equal. I get that, but it can be a lot more equal than what it is. But also, to your
Yeah,
point, something I read quite often now when you get these discussions online is, and it's a fair comment. I to part of me agrees, where they say, well, it's up to the rest to up their game, because as a Senna fan, oh, sorry, that
yeah,
way, you know, McLaren had that 1988 season where they absolutely, between Senna and Prost, they wiped the floor with everyone, and it was just utter that domination. So I can't sit here and not have a part of me that isn't in agreement with that statement. But when you contextualize it and you look into it a bit deeper, all of these superbikes, they are, in essence, based on production bikes. If you look at a ZX10R, an R1, these bikes, these liter bikes, are coming in at around, give or take, the 20 grand mark, to buy. The Ducati road
bit
version
less actually, because I was
is
having a look not
double.
too long ago.
It's double the price. It's
Yeah,
40 grand. So even though we're supposed to be racing with, where is that kind of, where do you draw the line where, well, actually, this bike is more than, in some cases, more than double, and yet it's still able to be homologated? So what do the Japanese brands do then? Do they then go, okay, well, we're going to build an R1M? And don't forget, Ducati now are bankrolled by Audi. This is why they're so strong in every class, because they've got the might of the VAG group behind them. So it's like literally limitless funds. It's like they've just basically cheat coded almost the game.
It's the equivalent
Limitless
of a
funds.
Saudi owner coming and buying a Premier League club,
Exactly
basically.
that. Exactly that. So, the companies, the Jap companies, are they going to say, well, okay, well, we're going to go down the V4 route now, or are we going to put I don't think they've got limitless funds, irrespective of their size. So, I find that a bit of a weird one.
The racing division will probably have a budget, and that's your budget.
Like I read today, like Kawasaki Heavy Industries has got nothing to do with Kawasaki's racing motorcycle arm. Because they were saying,
they'll be entirely separate entities in essence. In fact, similarly with this was only because I was sort of recently looking into it. But for example, LG Electronics and LG Displays are two completely separate entities. So although obviously they're both under the same parent brand, when you buy like I was looking into new TV recently, but they're separate entities. And
hang on, you're happy with your TV, aren't you?
that
one
plasma,
there.
the old battle tank, that
right,
plasma I've had since 2008, which I still love the picture on it, but it's a
bit long in the tooth now.
Well, it just puts out so much heat, and the room turns into a sauna when you turn it on. And come summertime, it will be
that's just not going to happen.
It's not going to fly. So I need a new TV for summertime. But anyway, we digress. So I also sympathise with what what Bautista's saying, and I agree with what you're saying. Just because a team has gained a competitive advantage, it's not right to just be like, well, we've put the time and effort into them, through our engineering brilliance, we've developed a fast machine, and now we should be punished for that. No, I'm not saying that they should have all of their advantage taken away. But again, just in the interests of the sport, it's not healthy for the sport if one team just dominates. And the reason why I say it's not healthy for the sport is because, number one, it's just, as I say, from a sporting perspective, it no longer becomes interesting for even for the neutrals.
I hear that argument, but I've got no issue with that if it's like a level playing field. Like otherwise, you wouldn't have legends like Ricky Carmichael, who's a Supercross rider, managed to win in one season. It was, I think, either 24 out of 24 Supercrosses or 26 out of 26 cruisers. Now, that might not sound great, but if you're Ricky Carmichael, you get to say, I did a clean sweep of a season. Like that's how legends are made. If it's the fact that there is such a huge discrepancy in sort of the way the Ducati is able to perform relative to the other bikes that I take issue with. So if you've done it, if he was a big lump like Scott Redding and doing it, I'd say, you know what, it sort of cancels it out because this he weighs a lot. It's not going to be an advantage. Scott Redding's an absolute lump.
I'm just Googling what the factory power output for a standard road bike is for the Panigale. So the factory bike that you can buy, Jesus, puts out 215.5 horsepower at 13,000 RPM, and I don't think the Yamaha's going to be over 100 even. Let's have a look. If I had to guess, I'd say somewhere around 195, give or take. 200 at 13.5. So, before the teams have got their mitts on it, it's already got a sizable advantage. in power. So you yeah, it's a tough one.
It is.
We could debate it endlessly,
Yeah,
but
before we wrap up, I want to talk about my Le Mans trip, and because
oh yeah,
I visited the 24-hour
you did. And
Motos.
I haven't heard any of the stories yet, so do tell.
Well, basically, so it came about when I went to pre-season testing in January. I was in the pit garage talking to Varol and Toprak's brother Tumay, and we're obviously talking in Turkish. And this mechanic's walking past us, suddenly just stops, turns around, and starts talking in Turkish, saying, "That's the first time I've ever heard Turkish spoken in the paddock." So this guy Mehmet is a mechanic for the ERC Ducati endurance team who participate in obviously the it's only 3 races in their calendar: Le Mans 24-hour, I think it's the Spa 24-hour, and then the Boldor. Oh, maybe Suzuka as well. I'm not sure where that comes in. But long story short, befriended Mehmet, and he said, do you want to come to the race? And I was like, fuck yes. But in all honesty, I didn't think, how some people say something and you think, I'm not sure that there'll be anything coming from that. Because it was just ultimately a chance meeting. To be fair, he invited us into the garage. Now, Chaz Davies rides for this team. So although he's left World Superbike, he's part of this team. So it's Chaz Davies, Xavi Flores, and David Checo, who's Carlos Checo's brother. And they participate in the Le Mans. So back in January, Mehmet obviously extended that invite. I didn't hear from him for a few weeks. Unfortunately, we obviously had the earthquake in Turkey, which was one of the reasons. So he then got back in touch and said, "Oh, look, do you still want to come?" I was like, "Yeah, 100%." So this was obviously set against the backdrop, which I'm not going to go into because it's just I could be here all day. Me getting my hands on the new car just in time for the road trip down there. Now, I also had on the way. I was first of all, you were supposed to come with me, but you didn't. Let me down, and I ended up going on my own.
I'd have very much loved to have, but unfortunately,
I know.
Financial constraints meant that it wasn't a possibility. I
Yeah.
do if it's on next year, then I really would like to try and make it.
Well, he's offered me to the other races, so if funds are looking good for both of us, maybe we can go. So first of all, you've got the issue of I'm in a right-hand drive car, and their bloody toll roads are obviously they're all left-hand drive cars, so I've got to keep jumping out of the car.
It's always fun going for a toll booth, especially when you haven't got a passenger. You can just tap that card for me, would you please?
Yeah. That was all fun and games. Now, on the way down to Le Mans,
what you've got to get for next time, by the way, you need one of those rubbish pickers, and then you can pinch the card with that and then tap it.
Yeah, very good. I actually have one, I think, from work from when we moved.
You need to take the rubbish picker and chuck it on the passenger seat.
Right.
Top tip for anyone who's listening.
So I've got this new Hyundai i30N, really nice, cool little hot hatch, and I've got it in eco mode because I know it's not the most frugal within its class, but it's frugal to me, having come from a C63 V8. So I'm on the way down there, and then suddenly Waze decides it's going to take me off the motorways, and it takes me. And bearing in mind, it's pissing with rain. So I end up on these what suddenly turn out to be these are quite tasty country roads. Like these are proper.
What tyres did it come with?
P0 Corsas, which aren't held in very high regard. To be fair to the dealer, they put brand new front ones on for me because it only had 3 mil left of tread.
So you've got new tyres. So I've just recently done, as you know, a tremendous amount of research into tyres, and I would have highly recommended the Continental.
Is it the Dunlops?
Contact.
Or is it Contact 6?
Well, the 6 or the Sport Contact 6 or 7, whichever one the latest one is. In some tyre tests, there's a YouTube channel called Tyre Reviews, and this guy, I forget his name now, Bradley something maybe. A, he can drive, and B, he obviously takes this seriously enough that he gets invited to like the Michelin test track in in France, and I think he's been to like Goodyear's sort of own personal test tracks, and he'll take same car, same conditions, same day, and sort of like 4, 5, 6 different sets of rims. Goes out, does 5 laps in the pits, chuck the new tires on, straight back out before the conditions can really change much. And he did back to back to back testing on sort of all of the ultra high performance tires, and the Sport Contact 6 or 7, whichever one the most recent is, absolutely destroyed the competition.
Right.
Dry performance was quite similar, so I ended up putting a set of the Goodyear Eagle F1 Super Sports on mine, which I'm very happy with. And dry performance, there was little to nothing between the Sport Contacts and the Eagle F1 Super Sports, but wet weather, it was the times were so different. He thought that his timing equipment might be malfunctioning and had to
Right.
go and run the tests
Okay.
again. I think it was like 6, 7 seconds a lap
Well,
faster.
I'll be honest, it was a new car. I was going to initially take it very easy, but then I just
Well, if you're ever
saw,
going to barrel roll it when it's new, is the time to do it.
yeah, I saw these roads. And I just thought, you know what? No, I'm not having that. Like, I've bought this car. It's still ultimately a hot hatch with almost 300 horsepower. So I just stuck it in N mode. So with Hyundai, the N mode is like, the sort of full
Yeah, I've
beams.
driven one of those. I
Yeah.
took one for a
So
little bit of a tire kick at a main dealer's.
yeah, so it was. I have to admit, it's the best fun I've had in a very, very, very long time in just terms of pure driving feels. Maybe not for outright speed, but this 8-speed DCT box is just fantastic.
Yeah, great
For a
gearbox on it.
four banger, it doesn't make a bad sound. It does a lot of the coughing and spluttering and burbling and popping and cracking. So that was
Tad,
cool. But
yeah,
the box is the best for me. The box is the best, probably the best part of the car. But it felt really sorted. Long story short, 15 minutes of really hooning it through these French sort of country lanes and back roads, and I got back onto the autobahn. Well, not auto, they were motorway. Um,
yeah.
all of a sudden, I've noticed, okay, that fuel needle has taken a rather abrupt plunge southwards. I'm gonna have to keep my eye out for services, but it's looking okay for now. So the remaining range, when I read it about that point, it was saying something like, I don't know, 30 miles. I've got it up to about 70, 75 on the motorway. And about 10 minutes later, it sort of dived down to about 12 miles. And I'm thinking, I don't really fancy fuel like bingo on the way down to Le Mans on my own in a country that I don't speak the language. So I thought, oh,
And
this
you
isn't
never know
looking
with a
good.
new car how serious it is with that 0 miles left. Because
Exactly.
certain cars, like, for example, my one, I know when it says 0 miles left on the odd occasion when it has run that close. I've never run out, but I've run it a good 10 miles, 12 miles with 0 on the clock, and it's not giving me that telltale like little sputter that it gives you. That's, I think,
Sorry, I don't know why, but my printer has started printing. Unless Ingy has given it some sort of command, there's like some sort of ghost in the machine there.
nice. Okay.
So apologies
But
for
yeah,
that.
so
Yeah.
unfamiliar
So
roads, unfamiliar
yeah,
language, and potential
and
breakdown.
yeah. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, God, I'll tell you what, because I'm thinking that at some point I'm going to see a services and there's nothing coming up. So I go into Waze and it says nearest services is a Shell. It's like 20 miles away. And like I'm
Oops.
reading 12 or so remaining on the tank. I'm like,
Oh, 8, you'll be fine. I wouldn't be
no,
worried
no,
in a new car about
no.
going
I was
8
like,
miles into
no,
0.
I went into full panic station mode. I was like, fuck this. I put it right. I put the fours on, slowed down to about 40 mile an hour, and it's all uphill bloody roads. I can't seem to find like a nice stretch of road going
Eight
downhill
miles into 0, you'll be fine in a new car.
where I put it into neutral and I can just coast. It's all bloody uphill, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna get stranded here. I've got into full panic station, so I just straddled like half, like put the fours on, half straddled I mean, it's not really a hard shoulder. It's not really big enough to be a hard shoulder. So I'm half straddling the inside lane and I'm half straddling the half shoulder. And I went like that for about half an hour. It was the most painful half an hour.
Yeah, but then you're
For the
burning more
last,
fuel like that. Just stick
well,
to
for
like
the
55 at its most economical speed, and then
yeah, the
just
last
get on with it.
five, yeah, I maybe overdid it, but the last 5 miles, the car read remaining range of 0. And like Ahmet, who's our resident Hyundai friend, the service manager at our local Hyundai, was like, I'm surprised you got there, mate, because 0 in a Hyundai really does mean 0.
Oh, really?
So
Okay. So it's not
yeah,
like the Beamers then. 0 normally means, yeah, you're good for at least 10.
no, he said in the i30N, you were really chancing it. He said, managed to get there anyway. Then I get down there. These bastards don't speak a word of English, and I don't speak a word of French. Now, I'm supposed to have a team pass, but the team pass has been, so it's like a lanyard. It's been left
Right.
at the hotel that the teams were staying at.
Right.
And Mehmet's trying to talk me to how I'm going to get into the place without the lanyard. And I'm like, mate, it's just not going to happen. Then I end up going to the hotel. I get to the track, but I don't have a parking permit. So I just sort of get to like one of the entrance points and I just literally just park up. I'm hearing these like what sounds like fireworks. What it is, you get these nutcases who every year take a bike and about 4 donor engines, and apparently for about 4 or 5 days straight, without fail, without any let up, from morning till night, from night till morning, they're basically in the camp yards, in the camps, revving the nuts off of these engines, and they will make like they will fabricate like trumpet, trombone style exhausts. I even saw one that I drove past on the way out. Somebody got a full metal bin and fabricated it to be an exhaust. And all they'll do all day is just go, and they'll just take, like I said, apparently they'll go with donor engines because the only thing that they care about is just getting through them. And I just
Right.
found that to be the most bizarre and ridiculous behavior. Like, I'm here to watch a motorbike race. What am I going to blow engines up for? Like after 10 minutes, it's like, okay, the novelty's worn off. Like I'm just bouncing an engine off the limiter. Great. Who gives a fucking
4
shit?
engines worth of rev limiter bouncing would it'd bore me and jar me.
Yeah.
Forget the mechanical sympathy, it'd just bore me.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but that's all you hear all day at the track. As much as you hear the guys out on the track, you can hear in the background these guys burning through their engines. Now, obviously, we had also
spend a weekend.
So I had the sort of split conflict interests of being a guest of ERC Ducati, Procascro, I think they're called, the actual team, and Roddy Pack, our Turkish rider who rides for Slider Endurance. So ERC are in the Formula class, the top class, and Roddy rides in the stock class for his Yamaha team. So I was sort of going in between garages. Now, bearing in mind, I'm not a guest of Slider, but there's such a chilled vibe there that I basically just said, is Roddy there? And they would let me in. There was no issue. Really nice guy, fast rider, very consistent. Big ups to these guys, though, man. I mean, I went there Friday. I was there for Saturday when the race began. And then to think that I go to my comfy Airbnb and I'm all sort of, I'm in bed sleeping, and to think those guys were out there hooning around a racetrack. I spoke to Roddy the next morning. I went and visited him, and he looked like death warmed up. His eyes were bloodshot. He said, riding in the night, he said it was almost 0 degrees. He said, I had to slow down. I just simply couldn't brake. I couldn't feel the brakes. My hands were numb from the cold. I
was thinking it did strike me as an odd time of the year to be running an endurance race. Like, who's going endurance racing in April? Because, like you said, nighttime weathers are going to be April. I can't
Apparently,
imagine
it's usually
that
every April though, and it's never that bad. Apparently, it was unusually cold for that time of year in that part of the country. Yeah,
fair enough. Because I mean, in Britain, we've got the old expression "April showers." Like you never know what you're going to get in April. It could be mild. It could be absolutely freezing. Like, for example, tonight, I think it's going down to 0 degrees Celsius again. And I was like, hang on, where's this cold come from? I thought we were in spring. But
yeah.
Anyway.
But it was an experience, it's a real carnival atmosphere. What I noticed was at the start of the race, because obviously they do that classic Le Mans thing of lining up lengthways with the riders at the other side of the track, and they run to it. The stands were full for the race start. And then within about an hour, they were empty. So it's like, have all these guys gone back to rev the shit out of their engines again? They just come for the start, see the exciting bit.
Well, you've got 24 whole hours of the racing to go. So I guess if you want to watch racing, there's no There's no shortage.
Here's how different this racing is. The Suzuki team, who were, if not the favourite, one of the favourites, went out, got hit going into the, Le Mans. It's a they go down the straight, and then there's that right hander. So into that right hander, as they straighten out for the left, the Suzuki rider got hit on the inside and came barreling off. That Suzuki team lost about 20 minutes to half an hour. Yet, think of it, they raced, got the bike repaired, and dropped down to about 54th, I think it was, like last place. Lost about half an hour. By the end of the race, they'd worked themselves back to 7th.
Nice.
That is a Herculean effort.
Yeah.
It's so different to what we used to. It was obviously short form racing. You go out, you crash, that's it, you're done.
End the race, yeah. No, get it back in the pits and fix it up. And
exactly. With endurance racing, it just shows you don't throw the towel in. You get back up and you keep plugging away, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, quite literally is a race of attrition.
Yeah. ERC Ducati came 5th. Now, Philip Ertel was actually there because Xavi Forez's wife gave birth a few days before the race, or a few weeks before the race. So he got basically given it's not compassion leave. What do you call it? Paternity leave, basically.
Paternity leave, yeah.
Philip Ertel, who rides for Go 11 in World Superbike, stepped in to sub. So it was Philip Ertel, David Checker, and Chaz Davies. That was Chaz's first race, and on his Instagram he said, "I loved it, and hated it in equal measure. Can't wait for the next one."
Nice, cool.
But yeah, that was my experience at Le Mans. Thank you to also Mehmet and ERC Ducati Procrascro. I still can't get that name right. Very hospitable. That pit box was at times absolutely full of guests and people. And at no point were we made to feel unwelcome. No point told to leave. I mean, okay, there were times where we were sort of told to give the riders space, but it was always handled really well. I have to really, really thank them for that and take my hat off to them, because let's just say I've not witnessed the same sort of courtesy in World Superbike, and leave it there.
Nice. Cool. When's the next race in their championship?
I think it's Spa next. It's either Spa or the Bol d'Or, but I think that's not until May or June. They because of the style of racing, there's just not a lot of races in their calendar.
You can't exactly go every weekend either, can you?
Yeah.
So, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. That was episode 2 of season 2 of the Fast Turks. And this weekend. So today, did we give the date today? So recording date of 24th of April.
24th, yep.
So this weekend, Jem and I will be, as we mentioned earlier, off to Alton Park. Jem will be with Rapid again, Rapid CDH Racing in the British Superbikes, and I'll be there with him, camera on tow, trying to get some cool shots. So we'll have some of that to talk about in the next episode as well. So thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Cheers, guys. Take care.